Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me here today for an update on all of the progress that we're making here in Ellicott City. As Labor Day approaches, I think everyone would agree that this has been a challenging summer. The county's rain gauge near historic Ellicott City has already recorded 18 inches of rain since June 1st of this year. To put that in perspective, that is only 1.5 inches less than the same time period in 2016, which included the devastating 2016 flood. The National Weather Service has issued 2 flash flood warnings for historic Ellicott City this summer, meaning flooding is imminent or already happening, which activated our outdoor tone alert system. And since January 1st, we have had 13 flash flood watches that included historic Ellicott City, leading to 13 activations of our Emergency Operations Center. I know the anxiety that our neighbors in Ellicott City feel every time it rains, because I feel it too. That's why my team and I have been working diligently since taking office to move the needle on progress in Ellicott City through my Ellicott City Safe and Sound plan. Now, I've talked to you before about the progress you can see and the progress that you cannot see. Some of the progress that you can see includes completion of the improvements to the storm drains on Rogers Avenue, completion of the repair of the St. Luke's Church slope, completion of the work on Ellicott Mills Culvert, installation of access gates on private property to allow for egress from Main Street in the event of severe weather, and thanks again to Barry Gibson and Bert Wilson for their partnership. Near completion of the renovation of the Thomas Isaac Log Cabin, ongoing work to stabilize the slope on New Cut Road. And I know the road closure has been especially challenging for residents there. And weather permitting, we hope to have the road reopened before November 1st. Ongoing work to clean up, stabilize, and repair 6 county-owned buildings on Main Street that are now going to be preserved because of our Safe and Sound plan. And soil borings for the North Tunnel, which are critical to the design process. And I was pleased to allocate $4 million this fiscal year alone to move from preliminary to final design of the North Tunnel. Now, the progress you can't always see is the incredible amount of work that takes place in a project before a shovel even hits the ground. This includes property and land acquisition, preliminary design and engineering, final design, permitting, hiring contractors to do the work, and coordinating with numerous external entities, including CSX. In the case of our Safe and Sound projects, the pre-construction phase also includes a federal Section 106 review required as part of our joint application to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Maryland Department of Environment. No work can be started on the Safe and Sound projects under review until this process is complete. When we submitted our permit application last September, we anticipated the process would take about a year. Then a global pandemic hit, and we faced several months of delay. As we wait the completion of the Section 106 process, we have been doing everything we can to move these projects forward. Since taking office, we have spent over $20 million on flood mitigation in Ellicott City. This includes acquisition of land and properties needed to complete capital projects, and funding for design and other planning efforts to allow our projects to move forward. Other progress that you may not see is the work my team is doing to try to secure the additional funding we need to complete the flood mitigation projects. Every state and federal funding opportunity is reviewed and researched by our team. If we are eligible, we apply. If we are close to being eligible, we apply. And we will continue to apply for every available dollar. We are also exploring innovative financing structures and should have more information on that in the coming months. If done correctly, the progress you cannot see every day leads to successful progress that you can see. And I'm pleased to announce that within the next 18 months, 5 of our flood mitigation projects that are scheduled will start construction. These 5 projects are the H7 Pond, the Quaker Mill Pond, the Maryland Avenue Culverts, the 8600 Main Street Culverts, and the 8534 Main Street Culvert / 8552 Main Street Berm. As is typical with every capital project, this schedule is contingent upon acquisition and weather. The H7 and Quaker Mill ponds will reduce peak flows in the Hudson Branch Stream Channel, reducing the likelihood of water overtopping the stream channel, particularly in the West End. The 8600 Main Street Culvert and the 8534 Main Street Culvert, along with the 8552 Street Berm, will help to ease existing constrictions in the stream and increase the capacity of the conveyance system. And the Maryland Avenue culverts will ease constrictions and provide much-needed capacity for water flow at the bottom of the channel in historic Ellicott City, reducing the likelihood of deep water on Main Street, one of our priorities. These 5 projects are 100% fully funded. Let me repeat that. These 5 projects are 100% fully funded and expected to be underway by December 21. Some of these projects have been in the works for a long time and have faced significant challenges through the design process. One required coordination with several offices across 3 different state agencies to gain the necessary approvals. Others, like the Maryland Avenue culverts and the 8534 culvert / 8552 berm, did not start the design process until after we came into office. This fiscal year, we plan to spend nearly $19 million on flood mitigation alone, plus another $3.4 million on the necessary building removals. I want to especially thank Delegate Courtney Watson and Senator Katie Fry Hester for their advocacy in Annapolis during this last legislative session. Their partnership has been invaluable to moving this plan forward. Many of our safe and sound projects, including most of the projects I just mentioned, are currently under review. The county was required to submit a joint application to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Maryland Department of Environment for the projects located in the waterways and the floodplains. This permit application triggered a federal Section 106 review due to the historic and cultural resources in the project areas. We anticipate that Section 106 process will be completed by the beginning of next year, and that our permit hopefully will be issued shortly thereafter. The next step in the joint permit and Section 106 process is a hearing that the Army Corps and MDE are holding on September 9th, starting at 7 p.m. That is your opportunity to comment on the permit application, so please register and, if possible, attend this virtual meeting. We also continue to coordinate with CSX regarding working underneath the railroad and are optimistic about the outcome of that process. Now, while I'm excited about the progress we're making on these projects, I also know that large construction projects such as these take time. Anyone who knows me knows that my favorite time to get things done is today and now. So you can imagine how I feel about the completion of these projects taking this long, especially given the critical nature. During construction, it's incredibly important that we take all possible opportunities to stay prepared and be safe. One of the first things we did when we took office was announce the first phase of our Elliott City Safe and Sound plan. This phase included the installation of our outdoor tone alert system, high ground access points, and our enhanced stream cleaning program. Prior to Safe and Sound, the streams around Elliott City were only being cleaned on a quarterly basis, and records were not even consistently kept about how much debris was being removed. We now clean them anytime there's severe weather and have already cleaned out nearly 29 tons of debris since we took office. I want to thank Lori Lilly, Howard EcoWorks, and our hardworking team at the Department of Public Works for their partnership in the debris removal and keeping our streams safer. Phase 1 also included a flood mitigation assistance grant program to help property owners complete flood resilience projects on their homes and businesses. In the first round of this program, more than $130,000 was distributed for flood mitigation projects on 30 different structures. I'm pleased to announce today another round of flood mitigation assistance grant, and this program now has a few updates. The grant program is still available to property owners in specified areas, and this year has been expanded to business owners who also rent or lease space. Eligible projects for business owners include those that increase the flood resilience of their business, merchandise, or equipment. The county will match 50% of the costs up to $2,500 for business owners and up to $5,000 for property owners. The program now covers bridges and structural driveways that cross stream channels, as well as primary building structures. Applications are due on October 9th, and awards will be made on November 2nd. There will be 2 pre-submission meetings where you can get all of your questions answered by my team. And all of the information on the meetings and other details about the program are available on the EC Safe and Sound website. Now, the last thing I would like to talk to you about is the Ellicott City Watershed Master Plan. After being paused following the 2018 flood, and again right after the 2018 election in November of that year, the master plan process is finally nearing completion. Last week, we hosted a virtual open house that was attended by more than 90 community members. We have also had more than 700 comments on the plan since the beginning of the process in 2017. The comment period for the master plan ends tomorrow. So please, if you have not had a chance, review the plan and provide your comments. This plan is meant to be a guide for how to ensure Ellicott City is thriving for the next 20 years, outside of the work that we're doing with flood mitigation. Your comments and participation in this public process are important and appreciated. Once the comment period closes, a final draft of the plan will be presented to the County Council for approval. For the last 4 years, Ellicott City has faced numerous challenges. This year, as a county, a state, a nation, we've collectively faced a challenge that has not been seen in most of our lifetimes, a global pandemic. Even in light of that challenge, we've continued to keep Ellicott City a priority. Just a few weeks ago, I was on Main Street to announce that Ellicott City businesses had received more than $90,000 in grant money to help them recover for this pandemic. And I would like to close today by reaffirming what I told business owners who were in attendance that day. Even in the face of these most complicated challenges, we will continue to support our town, and we will work to make Ellicott City safe and sound for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now take some questions. Kim?
Yeah, you touched on this, but I wanted to get some more information about the status of the project to demolish the buildings down at the lower end. It looks like the Kaplan's building is already underway as far as the demolition, but some of the other ones haven't been touched. Can you explain where we are in the process for that?
And I'm going to repeat the questions for our folks watching on Facebook. The questions about the demolitions of the buildings in the lower end of Main Street. Zach?
So we have, good morning, I'm Zach Hollenbeck with the Department of Public Works. So we have two separate projects there. We have a project to completely demolish the lower four buildings from the former Phoenix up until Tiber Alley. That project will commence once we get through the local approvals as well as the Section 106 process, and will be completed before we start the underground work for the Maryland Avenue culverts. The work at Kaplan's that's ongoing started last summer because we were able to we had to request an emergency approval from the Army Corps and MDE to start that work. When we acquired the building, rear of the building was in danger of collapse. And so we requested an emergency project to stabilize that building, and we've been working on that portion since.
So will the Kaplan's building be done before the other ones? And when is that projected to be completed?
The work that we're doing now has another month or so to go. And what that is a stabilization of the front portion that you see between the street and the stream channel, near side of the stream channel. So it will stabilize and support that front portion. We'll have some follow-on work that will come in the future to renovate that building and return it to occupancy.
Thank you. Ava?
So the proposed cost for this project is more expensive than what was proposed from the previous county executive. Can you guys explain why it's important to have a project that's so much more expensive?
Okay. The question is about expense.
So, great question, and thank you so much. So previously, there was a plan that would be about $50 million and leave about 4 to 6 feet of flood water still coming down Main Street and demolish 10 buildings. It was important for me to not only respect the cultural and historical significance of Ellicott City, but to lessen the amount of flood water that would be coming down the street. Because to me, this is an investment in our future, and if we're going to invest tens of millions of dollars, we want to make sure that we maximize that investment and keep people as safe and sound as possible.
So you guys talk about the funding that you've already acquired for 5 projects. How many total projects are there? And how are you going to get the money for the remaining projects?
Well, I'll start off, and then I'll turn it over to Mark DeLuca. We are going to, as we have continued to do, is work with our local, state, federal, and private partners using all of our means of grant funding, of advocating in Annapolis, advocating with our federal delegation, and leveraging the dollars that we have. We are already investing significant amounts and making sure, for example, with those projects, those 5 projects are now fully funded. So they are no longer just mere words. We're turning those words into action. And I'll turn over to Mark for a little bit more.
I'm Mark DeLuca with Public Works. So the EC Safe and Sound project list is about 11 projects total. And of course, we now have slated these 5 that we'll be starting on.
Okay. How about the funding for the remaining 6 at this point?
So as the executive said, we are overturning every rock that we can and going after every grant program that we can apply for, whether we know we can get the money or if we even just think we might be able to get the money.
So what happens if you don't get the funding for those 6 additional projects? And if you can also explain to me, what are those projects, that what happens if we don't get it? Are they less important than the 5 previous projects, so you can kind of wait a little longer to get that funding? But first, what happens if you do not get that money?
Well, I'll partially answer that. So all of the projects are important to do. That's the number one. All of the grant money we get, it still only partially funds the projects. And then there's always going to be a certain portion that will need to be made up by the local government. So, and I'll stop there. I'll let the executive answer more.
So as I indicated, these projects, these large projects, take numerous steps in a significant amount of time. Right now, we are making the investments, and we have 5 fully funded projects. We're going to continue working to have all the projects because we recognize that Elliott City, a town that is almost 250 years old, is just an example of us during a time of increasing intensity and frequency of storms and climate change and development. We are a model of resiliency. So we are looking at not only the short term with many of the safe and sound initiatives that we've already implemented, the medium term, which is what we're talking about with these upcoming 18 months and other 5 projects starting, and then the long term over time.
I talked to some business owners a few weeks ago who expressed frustration that they didn't feel like they were seeing any of these projects be completed. They didn't see any real changes, in the last couple of years. What is your response to that?
So the question was about business owners not seeing changes. And I think, as I indicated, there are the changes that you see and the changes that you don't see. And when we are working on issues that have been intractable for numerous administrations and through numerous storms over decades, it's going to take some time. We're working through a significant process with multiple state, federal, and local partners, some public and some private, and we have continued to keep this a priority and move some things forward.
I have one more question. This is my last question, I promise. So the tunnel seems like that's one of the most significant parts of this project. Correct me if I'm wrong. When will the construction on that start?
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Mark. All of these projects work together. It's important for them, as we can, to have them move forward. There are going to be things that help convey the water, help store the water, help make sure that people are informed and empowered as major storms come, because there are always going to be major storms. And then I'll turn it over to Mark for timing.
Okay. So there was one question that I wanted to clarify something on. There are 11 projects in the EC Safe and Sound. One of those projects has already been completed, and that's the Rogers Avenue storm drain improvements. So some projects have been, some projects are ongoing, some projects have been done. I just want to reiterate what the executive said. You know, it's a long process. As a person on the ground working on the projects, it is a long process to get through preliminary design, engineering, and then into construction. So and they're complex projects. As far as the tunnel and the timing, this is the maybe the centerpiece of the projects, but it has the longest lead time because it's one of the more complicated. So we are just wrapping up preliminary design, and the people in the community should have seen a lot of activity as we were doing a lot of subsurface investigation and testing to determine, you know, what kind of tunnel, what the parameters of the tunnel would be. That was this past year. We're moving into a final design period, and we expect that to take about a year, and then construction thereafter. So that's a timeline for the tunnel. But again, just to emphasize the complexity of the projects and how much time it takes. And again, just to reiterate something else that the executive said, that, you know, knowing we didn't go into this blindly, we understood that it would take time. And that's why some of the measures that were taken, like the tonal alerts, for flash flood, and the egress, designing and signing the egress, and also the floodproofing grants to make the buildings on Lower Main, the ones that are most vulnerable, that make them more resilient. So we're realizing that, you know, that's an important aspect of the whole plan. And I don't want to have that discounted in any way. Thanks.
Any other last questions? Well, again, thank you for attending today, and please feel free to visit the EC Safe and Sound website, as well as the social media channels of the Howard County government for more information. Thank you so much.